All right. Good morning. See, we've got 9 people on the stream, so welcome. Good to see. Well, I would say good to see you all, but it's more like good for you to see me, I guess. I hope. Well, I'm in a slightly different setup here, so let me know how it looks and sounds and everything if there's issues with it. Looks like my bit rate is actually not excellent at the moment on this, so let me plug in my Ethernet cable and see if that helps. I'm on Wi-Fi right here, and that might be a bit slow. So let me get back to you just a second. Also, check this out. I've been playing around with OBS, different settings you can do in that. So check this out. I can switch over to this. Pretty neat, right? Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I'm going to have to switch USB port here. So I'm not on Ethernet yet. I have those dongles to connect everything. So good morning. Looks like, yeah, 10 viewers. Good to see you all, or good to see you seeing me, I guess. What you were just seeing, the view I had that was pointing out to what used to be behind me whenever I had this set up. So that was my backyard, and you could see the bird feeder. And I've turned things around now so that I can watch the bird feeder now. Yeah, actually a couple mourning doves out there right now. That's kind of nice. I haven't seen any squirrels all day yet, except the one squirrel that I noticed several times yesterday. I realized it has kind of a messed up tail, so that's going to be an easy way to verify that I'm seeing the same squirrel. It's missing some fur on its tail. So anyway, I'll keep an eye out for that. I'll keep you updated, I guess, if things progress with the squirrel. Anyway, hope you're all doing okay. I wanted to point that view outside, by the way, because even though it's a rainy day, I kind of like seeing what the outside looks like and thinking about. I like to take a walk after I teach, so I'm going to be doing that in the rain, it looks like. But that's all right. I like to do those things. Definitely kind of a mood today. I mean, kind of a somber, quiet kind of day around here. So I hope you all are doing well and making progress through things. So what I'm going to do today, the homework I sent you was to look at a short film, 20 minutes long, a film called E-Wasteland by David Fadley, and you can see it here. I'm trying a new setup with OBS too, by the way. So here's over here, this is like a marquee that will help me identify which section I'm looking at because I archive all these, and then the Slack feed is right up here. Or the Slack channel for our class, and then over here there is just a browser, so I can have other things going on too, including the browser, and I can hopefully manage that a little bit easier. But again, let me know how it sounds and looks, and let me make sure everything is coming through as clearly as possible. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do things, and so I might have other things I can do to improve it if this isn't working as well as it should. Okay, so a couple things. So we have this assignment that you hopefully are working on, the digital archaeology project. That's I've heard from a number of you with different questions you have. Anyone else with questions, please ask so we can figure things out. Also, if you figured something out recently, like if you figured out something interesting about your object, then let us know. Put it in Slack or in the Twitch chat. What's interesting? Like, what have you found out? that would be pretty cool to start getting some of those success stories in. I think some of you might be at the point where you're starting to get frustrated because as you're finding, some of this information is really difficult. So it'd be great to hear some success stories to help kind of encourage everyone who's still looking for things. So let us know in the Slack channel or in Twitch, and then we can enjoy and congratulate each other for that. It is marked as due on Friday, but of course all due dates are essentially suspended for this class. So don't worry about that if you can't get it in by Friday. But the sooner the better, so we can move on to the other things. Okay, so for discussion today, what I had in mind was looking at after looking at this film E-Wasteland, and I thought we could consider a few things. So I'm going to post a question here in Slack and then invite you to respond in Slack, or ideally in Slack, probably not the Twitch channel, just to kind of keep things a bit more organized. So let me just add a few things here. Good morning, everyone. So after watching the film, or let me rephrase that. So you watched the Wasteland. Did you recognize any of the objects or materials that the workers were assembling? So in a way, what they were doing in that film was a really radical version, or a really brutal version, I guess, of what we would have done on Friday, March 13th, when we had the plan to do our disassembly day. So that's a difference, but also there's the basic idea of taking something apart, seeing what's inside it. That's what they were doing. They had specific things they were looking for, of course, but it's something that might have seemed kind of familiar. So what did you think? Let me go ahead and hide OBS. Yeah, fridges, monitors. Why do you think there were so many fridges? Any thoughts on that? I mean, fridges seem like, I agree, there's a lot of them, but I'm curious if you have a theory about why they were so popular. Popular. I don't know if that's the right word. Yeah, they could be, right? And so Matthew says they could be because they're large. Yeah, could be. Could be both of those things that Matthew just said. Like, it could be that they're both large, and also when they break, they're broken. They're kind of hard to keep going. Like if the motor breaks or the compressor, then it's might be too expensive to repair, and so they might be something that ends up being disposable in that sense. And also, as Tess points out, that could also be the case that maybe they just got a big shipment, right? Maybe they just got a big shipment of fridges. That's certainly possible. It looks like at one point they're unloading a whole bunch of CRT TVs, which all look very similar to each other. So I assume they all came in at once. Like, they all probably came in on one truckload worth, and then they worked their way through it. Yeah, so a couple of you pointing out copper. So copper is definitely the main thing I saw them getting. So when you're looking at the bundles of wires that they're burning, they're trying to burn that PVC coating off so that they can get the copper out, and so that's what's happening. Okay, yeah, so if the cooling coil thingy is, I don't know the name of it, but the big thingy on the back of the fridge, if that's copper, then, and copper is definitely valuable. I don't remember if this was the 10 o'clock section or the 11 on Monday, but somebody found a link to the current prices of copper and what the scrap recycling prices are, and I think it was $2 a pound. So that's pretty high if you think about it in terms of how much copper might be in a fridge. certainly how much like copper would be in a house's plumbing if you use copper pipes. But if you have a whole bunch of electronics, it's going to take a lot of those individually to add up. But it seems like something that might be worth doing if you ended up with one of those big piles, right? One of those big wads of wires that might be, you know, difficult and dangerous to take apart, but you know, something that I can imagine there being a market for, I guess. Okay. So it's obviously because you all are responding to me, you all can see me okay, but I just noticed on my stream manager thing that I use, it looks like my image is frozen, but that it's frozen from Monday and it says I'm offline, although it also says I'm live, so I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, evidently you all can see me, so I'm going to continue as though that's the case. Okay, so we saw copper and a couple of devices. So what other devices did you all see? So I think Michaela mentioned a camera, and yeah, the small camcorder thing. I know at least one person, Olivia, is working on a camcorder for her disassembly project. So what else? What other small devices did you see? Oh, there's a squirrel. I see a squirrel. I think it's a different one though. Yeah, that's a different one. Okay. Yeah, lots of fridges. So here's one. So I have it pulled up here, and I can look to different timestamps. If you saw a particular thing at a particular timestamp, then you can, if you can tell me what it is, I can pull it up here. But I also wrote down a few that I thought were interesting. Yeah. So here's a G4 Mac, like a Mac Tower kind of thing. I have a couple of those laying around. Not that I own personally, but that I know where they are. I mean, this used to be kind of the state of the art Mac for video kind of things, and that basic form factor, that was that sort of gelatin looking case, that was a big thing in the early 2000s. That was kind of their signature look. So that's probably an older Mac and might be if I don't know if it's collectible really, but I have a couple that I'm keeping, so I'm not worried about it. Oh, there's a woodpecker. What kind of woodpecker is that? Sorry, I'm getting distracted by these birds, but that's I forget what that's called. Is it a downy? It's the kind that has just like a red spot on the back of its head. Not the big ones, like the big pileated, but it's something. Anyway, so yeah, so there was so I noticed that Mac because it's something that is familiar to me. What else did you guys see? Music keyboard, right? I remember seeing that too, Emily. Let's see, you can kind of scrub across here and see it. There it is. So this keyboard here obviously has a lot of integrated circuits, microchips on it, which suggests to me that it's kind of older, and also that it may have a fair amount of precious metals in it, and so that might be something that could be recyclable for more than just the copper kind of value. Okay. Interesting. So anything else? The TV, right? The TV, that was a really striking moment and really brief, actually. So I also noted that one. So let's see, I will apply the test here too. Yeah, that was really, I don't know what the word is, striking. I'm not trying to make a pun here, but I hope when you saw that, you were recalling how I told you not to do this. Oh, there's a squirrel. Oh, it just jumped up. Okay, sorry. The squirrel jumped from the ground. Hang on a sec. I gotta go. Get over there. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I just saw it jump from the ground up to the bird feeder, so that just tells me that it's not high enough. So okay. So the TVs. Notice that these kids are doing what I warned you not to do. So this is at around 14:16, And this kid is just smashing this vacuum tube, so there's an implosion risk. I guess that's not the case. It hasn't really. I mean, it's shattering, but there's mercury and there's lead inside of those, so that's a real hazard that this kid is being exposed to here. Looks like the actual cathode ray part is already off of this monitor, so like the actual metal of it, the really potentially valuable part of it. So I'm not sure what they're looking for here. So, but clearly they're exposing themselves to some harm as they're doing this in flip-flops on a junk pile. It's certainly sad. I mean, really, to kind of see them exposed to this kind of risk. Okay, so other moments, do you recall other objects? And if you have a timestamp especially, I can pull those up. Okay, I don't see anybody typing, so another question then is, so a big theme as we've been looking through all this stuff is understanding how different media types have different ways of communicating their points, and they also have different resources available to them as far as establishing credibility. So we saw a documentary type film on Monday that looked at that had researchers showing how they did their work, and also stylistically that thing was presented in a way that made it look credible by interviewing people with titles and so on. So this is the kind of thing that we are kind of look at with this as well. So let's be clear first of all. So what are the basic claims being made in this film? So in a rhetorical sense, like what are the things that this film wants us to know? What is it saying are true? And I forgot to put my question mark in, so there it is. Of course, there are some intertitles, like there is some text on screen here, and so if you want, I can pull up those. I have to look for them. They're near the beginning and the end, but they're pretty literal and pretty direct. I mean, there's one. But there's more than this. I mean, there's more than just the literal on-screen claims that they're making here. So, okay. Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's definitely the literal claim as well as the overarching theme. I mean, the idea that this is happening, they're making very specific claims about how much and where it comes from and where it goes. But the overall thing they want us to know is that this is hurting other people and the environment, and we can certainly see both of those things here. Yeah, so the other idea is, right, the export is key. The export-import process is also claimed here. But you notice, though, that we don't actually see that part of it. We see the part in Ghana, and we see the neighborhood in Accra that works in this trade. We don't see the importing or the exporting, but it is claimed textually that this is what's happening. And I think this is actually the screenshot. Every year, around 200,000 tons of secondhand and condemned electronic goods arrive in Ghana, West Africa. Goods are mainly received from the developed world. So let's see, and it goes on a little bit. So what they're saying here is actually pretty important. So the fact that this is illegal, as it says at 306, needs to be explained a bit. So there are laws against exporting hazardous waste to send it off around the world. And so what they're saying here is that the way they're getting around this is, instead of calling that old computer or that old fridge hazardous waste when it's shipped, instead it's labeled as a secondhand good. So it's like like being reused. Like the claim in the way that it's being exported is that it's being reused, but the claim in this film is that that is a misleading or false claim, and it is in order they're making that claim in order to um, disguise the fact that they're exporting hazardous material. So that's the claim here. I looked into it a little bit, and it seems like that some of these claims have been questioned a little bit. In fact, one of the I did find another document about this particular dump in Ghana, and some different analysis found that actually most of the things that they're taking apart there actually originated in Africa. So it isn't actually being most of it is not being exported from, say, the United States and Europe into Ghana. Some of it is, but most of it is not, and most of it is just actually local. In any case, it is still a problem. It is still a huge e-waste problem. It's just where it comes from may not have quite the story that the film here claims, but that's okay. So, that's something that could be looked into a bit. But I think the value of this film is not so much in those claims. I think the earlier documentary film we saw does make claims in a more factual kind of way, and that could be scrutinized for those kinds of the accuracy of those claims. This one, I think the compelling part of this actually comes elsewhere, and it's not so much in the facts, but in something else. So, thinking about this film in more aesthetic terms, so how would you describe the tone of this film? And you can compare contrast with the one we watched on Monday. So thinking of this as an artifact itself, how would you describe it? I mean, you can go with a one-word kind of thing that occurs to you, or you could think of it in terms of a longer comparison contrast. What do you think? Yeah, maybe. There's a button I can click to reply instead of having to type. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, definitely. I would say certainly looks bleak. I mean, bleak is my word, not yours, but I think that's what you're getting at. It goes. Okay. I was just trying to refresh my stream over here so I could see what is going on. Yeah, I like that phrase. Very matter of fact. So we have some words. Bleak was my word. Somber from Curry. Darker. Matter of fact. Kind of noting these different words you all are using. Direct, yeah, good. Direct is interesting. I mean, it's definitely there. Interesting idea. Curry, I want to ask you more about that. So interesting. So Curry is noting that she got the sense that it's that if we're looking at the actual situation of the person taking something apart, it sounds like you're contrasting the workers in China who seem to have jobs with the people here who maybe it seems like you use the word imposed, but you might there might be other ways, but other synonyms for that. But it sounds like you're saying they're coerced in some way or trapped in some way, or that they may not have a choice to do this. So I'm curious what gives you that impression. Not that I don't disagree. I'm just curious. Yeah. Another point from Emily that I thought was interesting. I'm kind of expanding back on what Emily said, that just the idea that this is just people's lives and we get to see them both at work and play and eating lunch and all these things. I think that's what really strikes me about this piece. It's not just sort of, hey, this is a bad situation, but it's saying, here are some people, and these people are living in a bad situation. And I think there's a difference there that's pretty important. Yeah, it does. So Lillian is giving one suggestion, building off Curry's. It might be that like just poverty is its own kind of coercion. Like even if it's not someone sort of enslaving people or whatever, or like we saw with the peonage system, even if it's not something formalized like that, just the fact that you don't have any other options means that you're coerced into that situation. Like there might just be the lack of mobility is a huge factor, and or a huge, very important way to think about lack of options and coercion, and to go to Curry's word, being imposed upon, I guess. So yeah, it looks like Curry's typing. So let you finish your thought. And while you're doing that, I need to check something here. Yeah, here it is. So this film is also available on Vimeo, and I'll show you why that's important for a second in a moment here. It's available at lots of other places. I think I found this initially on Canopy, which is the streaming video service that our library sort of subscribes to and sort of doesn't now. But it's also out in other places. This is the kind of thing that the filmmaker David Federle would have, I assume, showed at different films, different festivals and things. And so he's really trying to get it out there and show different things. Yeah, interesting comments too from the director here. Interesting. I'm just kind of I didn't never noticed this before, but it looks like the director is answering some questions on Vimeo. Okay, so Gary's still typing. Oh, here it goes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so it's something that's being foisted upon Ghana, perhaps, if that export story is true, if the export-import story is true, it's kind of just here's where it all ends up. It sort of reminds me of, like, you may have seen the Thor Ragnarok movie, and there's the planet. I imagine that planet, the way that was visualized was based on places like this. And this place is called, I wrote it down, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but Agbogbloshie, I think, is the name of this particular area. It's pretty interesting, actually, to look at, and I wanted to show you this because I always like, digital tools make it possible to find so many things and look at so many things in detail and get to know things in ways that we wouldn't otherwise. And so you can actually Google these things and just look at it. Bog. Hopefully that's right. So it's a neighborhood or a part of town, like a slum in Accra, which is in Ghana. And you can, of course, look at it in Google and figure out kind of what's going on there. Lots of pictures of it. Oh, it has 2.5 stars on Google Maps. Great. But you can, looking at a satellite view can often be instructive to try to just kind of get the feel of a place. And it looks pretty grim, honestly. It does look pretty rough. You can kind of see there's actually a church here, which is interesting. But you can see the large area where presumably the burning happens, and then the rivers. There's two different rivers coming through here. But if you zoom out a bit, often you can understand an area a little better, and just kind of understanding just like Accra is kind of interesting. It's fully Google Street View available, so you can work your way through it that way. Sorry, I was watching a squirrel. So like, except for the dump part of it, like you can't drop a pin in the middle of that, but you can get pretty close. And let's see what we can find here. Yeah, so that's pretty similar visually to some of the scenes, but much more commercial. Like this looks like a market. It looks like, I don't know if those are potatoes or onions. The squirrel's back. That's okay. I'm gonna let it eat for now. But yeah, I mean, this is certainly a much more, I don't know, healthy looking place, friendly looking place, but it's just a street over from the dump area. Let's see. Other parts of Accra look, busy, but pretty typical as far as a large city. There's a large park area. Let's see, I don't really know the organization of town very well, but let's see, there's different places we can drop a pin and see what's going on. Asylum down. Let's find a good looking, I don't know, I'm just picking a random spot here, but yeah, kind of tough looking area, but people walking and streets and things, so construction going on here. So pretty, not an unusual type of city in a lot of ways, and pretty large if you keep zooming out. It's a pretty expansive city. Whenever possible, I always like going to places and seeing what they actually look like. You can also see they're right by the coast, so this is kind of useful to see kind of just the geographic general area here that we're looking at. So this is this part of Africa. There's actually a beach area. We can zoom back down into it. This is probably lagging my stream a lot, by the way, but hopefully it's not terrible. When you get down here, you can see that it actually is several beach resorts and things just right along the edge. So it's pretty, looks like a tourist kind of industry in here too. Okay, I'm going to close this tab just because it's probably killing my bit rate. But anyway, so I wanted to show you this on Vimeo because there's something we can do with this to try to keep exploring this as an artifact. So this is an observational style documentary, and so we have the filmmaker just there with the camera, not interviewing people, but just kind of being there. And kind of being there creates a lot of interesting and sometimes eerie moments in this piece. We talked about some of the specific objects that were getting taken apart, but here's something to try. So I don't know how well this will work. I usually do this activity just with in the HCC with people at tables, but we'll try it here. So let's try this. So using use to think about and pay. I'm gonna type this out here. Specific moments in this film. See if you can find a particularly powerful, interesting, or eerie moment to make a GIF of. So the idea of make a GIF and then share it back here in Slack, and you can do this in several ways. In experimenting, I found that the Giphy, like Giphy, that one will not work with eWasteland because it's too long. Giphy requires you to work with films or videos that are 15 minutes or less. And then Imager does not have that restriction, but Imager will not work with YouTube currently. So you have to, so I found it on Vimeo. So here it is on Vimeo. See if you can use the imager.com. Let me get to their GIF maker page. And once you make one, see if you can share it. So I'm going to go through and make this one. I don't know how the stream is going to handle that. Like it might lag a bit as I try to work through it. So hopefully it won't be too bad if you're working on your own. But once you get one, then share it, and I will show you how to share it once I have one. But let me get working through this. The squirrel, I watched it that time, and it jumped from the tree to the feeder. So I might just need to hang it a bit farther out. This is fascinating, by the way. I love sitting here watching this. Okay, so let's see. So you go here to paste the video GIF, the video's URL, and then you get this little view here. And then, I know many of you did the GIF module, so you might have already done this. You move the playhead along until you find the moment that you're interested in. And then, yeah, that is a really, this particular sequence around this person is really kind of emotionally intensive somehow. I found this part really spooky for some reason. And so I'm going to make a GIF of this individual. So the bottom playhead, you move that left and right to show like how much you're clipping. Like that's going to give you that clip. And so in this case, I kind of like just kind of keeping in this particular part where the cows are just walking by. So I'm going to move back a little bit. Yeah, I like this part. I mean, I don't like it. It's a really awkward and eerie kind of moment. But I'm going to make this GIF, and then I'll show you how to share it. Now, I didn't put a caption on it. That's something that you could certainly do. I mean, this is something that you might want to interpret in some way. Like to me, this film works a lot through silence, and that's one of my next questions. But thinking about it in terms of aesthetics, it works a lot through just kind of being there and being present, and so it doesn't have, it's like not overly explained, it's not overly determined by text. But if you have a caption, or if you have something that you feel like is helpful to explain it, then you can certainly add that. Okay, so to share it, then you kind of have to do it a little weirdly. So you can go to, you can get share links. I think that's actually just the same link. Let's see. But let's see how this works. I think you can just do, yeah, so you can add, so take whatever the URL is that it gives you, which is, like in this case, 8AABKT3, and then you add .gifv on the end, and you'll get this MP4 version of it. And here's a moment I find particularly sad and spooky. Let's see how this, I'm not sure if this is going to embed in Slack. Oh yeah, kind of does. I might just play it once though. Yeah, well, you can certainly, I mean, you can make your own curry. It is, right? I mean, I think it's so, like the way that, I don't know, I'm not sure why it is so disturbing. I mean, I mean, maybe it's the way that these cows just don't care. I mean, there's such a lack of noticing. I guess the cows are just sort of marching along doing their thing. The guy is just sitting there not caring if the cows are walking by, the way he doesn't react to them at all. And then you see just the animals are just constantly grazing, and like, what could they possibly be eating there? Like that's another thing, and they're certainly not. It's not healthy, right? I mean, whatever they're getting is going to be contaminated with all the heavy metals and PVC fumes and things that are going around. So it's not something that is going to help them. Okay, so Emily's got one, and Marcus, great. Okay. So when they're posted like this, you can just click the link and it should open it up. But if you share the link with the .gifv, it should embed it, I think, in Slack, just FYI. So let's see, this one is, okay, so this one, I think this is Emily's, yeah. So after you post your, say a bit about why you chose that moment. So Emily, this is obviously pretty interesting. I mean, the smoke, I guess, that's the main feature I noticed here. So what led you to choose this moment, I guess, that's the question. And Marcus and Jonathan also, great. Bleak, yeah, so you gave it the title. Yeah, giving it a title certainly helps shape someone's interpretation of it whenever we see it. Like, this is an image of bleakness. Yeah, right. Why is the animal, like in both cases, like both the one I chose and then in these goats, why does the animal just doing its thing, like the goat has no idea, right? It's just doing, it's eating. Why does that give us such an intense feeling, maybe, or why does that make us feel so intrigued by it, I guess? Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, so Emily's good. Yeah, good point. I'm not sure, but I also get the impression that that shot is taken from a distance. Maybe shot across the river, so you really get that sense of scope. I mean, it looks like we're in the neighborhood, not necessarily like on the ground like some of these other ones. Okay, great. So Lillian, you have one with a person in it. Let's see. There are 2 or 3 people that you see multiple times, and this is one of the guys that you see coughing. Yeah. So is that? I'm curious if you could say why you chose that moment. But the guy coughing, I think, it reminds us of the harm, right? It reminds us of the risk of breathing in the material that they're burning. So that may be why you chose that. But certainly explain if you have other thoughts. Let's see, Brittany's. Yeah. So yeah, and Brittany again, the burning, right? This, by the way, I think this is near the end. This is where we kind of finally see they're almost done. Like, we see the end of the process that they're working through. And so Brittany is saying, yeah, right, you see it in the river, definitely. I almost wonder too, like in this scene I see them like sprinkling water from water bottles on the different thing, like burning different fires that they're burning, and I almost wonder why they didn't just dunk it in the river. Of course, that would be worse for the river, but would be cheaper in some ways. So I'm not sure. The river looks like it's in pretty bad shape. Yeah, exactly. Working to survive, but killing themselves at the same time with this. Close a couple of these. Yeah. So keep adding your thoughts as you need to. One other final discussion points. So these are great. As you complete your GIF. One final question. These GIFs are great because they let us spend time with a particular moment and person. They're also silent. The film is silent in other ways too. Why do you think they chose not to have non-diegetic sound? In other words, why is there no narrator, no music? And think of what maybe think of what a narrator could do. A narrator could say, "Here you see someone taking something apart," or they might say, or sorry, the squirrel's getting ready to jump. I'm getting ready. This is so interesting. Sorry, so the narrator might explain how to feel about certain things or interpret certain things. The music also can do a lot to interpret or guide your emotions, and so I'm wondering what the lack of those things does. So that squirrel just came down from above. It just went right by the baffle thing that I installed. It just sort of flew right through it. And this is a different one. This is the third squirrel I've seen today. I can tell because his tail looks different. Okay. This is the whole thing. So, but yeah, anyway, why do you think there's no narrator? And then we're getting, I've been going about 45 minutes, so we'll probably wrap it up pretty soon. Yeah. So I really like that that phrase. That Emily uses there, that it lets images speak for themselves because it lets us consider the ways in which images speak. We think of images as, we don't always think of images as rhetorical or speaking, but of course they are, especially here. And as Brittany points out, it lets us interpret it for ourselves. And also, as Lillian points out, the evident harm is not something that really needs to be explained. We can see that it's bad. We know it's bad to burn things like this. So it's really, it doesn't really need explanation. Yeah. So so Marcus has raised an interesting point. Oops, that's the wrong mark. The question of bias is interesting, and probably not. We don't have time to unpack it here. Could be unpacked. And what I mean is that the nature of it, the rhetoric of this film definitely presents itself as objective, and that's what we're led to believe at these kind of things. And it is. I'm not going to say that anything it's claiming here is false. But certainly there is still a perspective here. Images are never truly objective empirical evidence. Like, I mean, the choice of which person to film, the editing and choices of how long to show a certain person, all those things add up to our interpretation of this. And so I don't think you were saying this, but it's never the case that a film or any image is just neutral and just is whatever it is. And Marcus, you're an artist, so you know that images can mean lots of things, and that's what you do as an artist. And the same is true for filmmakers. Like, to put things together in a certain way is intended to send a certain message. And so that intention is part of what we should think about here. But yeah, good points, everyone. And of course, go ahead and continue your thoughts. I am going to wrap up this stream so I can start a new one in about 10 minutes and kind of go through this conversation again. So of course, if you're sticking around and conversing, you're welcome to continue on in the chat. I've got to go yell at a squirrel because it's really going to town on that bird feeder while I'm sitting here watching. But remember, on Friday, I'm not going to do a live stream. I'm just going to be open office hours, so I'll be hanging out. I'll send you the link, but it's whereby.com/Zach Whalen, and it's like a room. And so you just literally, when you open that link, it'll ask you to knock, and then once you knock, I'll see that you're knocking on the door to the room, and then I'll let you in if I'm free. And then that's it. So that's what I'll do on Friday instead of a live stream. But I'll be back again on Monday with another stream. And hopefully that's something that, I don't know, I'm finding myself looking forward to these. I like the routine and the familiarity of it during this weirdest time that we live in now. So I will wrap it up here, but of course, if you want to keep chatting in Slack, you're welcome to. I will see you all either Friday or maybe Monday. So thanks for watching. I'm going to shut it off.